Fire Service Data and Tech Talk.
This episode of Fire Service Data and Tech Talk is brought to you by Esri, the world leader in geospatial technology. Please click on our ad to find out how we can support your mission.
Hey gang, it's Eddie Buchanan with the Fire Service Data and Tech Talk podcast coming to you on fireengineering.com and all the fire engineering social media outlets. February 2026, we're getting knee deep into the year. FDIC is coming up in April, so by now you should have travel plans, you should have hotel reservations, you should have selected your class. One thing I always tell people about FDIC is to make sure you go through the course lineup and make sure you've kind of got a plan A, plan B, and plan C for which class you want to try to get into, because sometimes the really popular classes might sell out. You won't be able to get in. So you want to have that immediate plan B ready to go. So we're really excited to start heading for Indianapolis in a couple of months. It's going to be a great show. Lots of new things in the program. So be sure you made your arrangements to be there if you can. This month, we've got an exciting topic. I've been working on this for a while now, since we started the show, really. And kind of keeping the theme of this month of fire engineering, we're talking about apparatus. I wanted to talk about electric fire trucks, fire pumpers, right? I've seen them around. I've seen them at a conference here and there. I've not really ever had a chance to get hands-on with one. So I have a lot of questions. I'm sure you might too, about what is the thing? How does it work? What are the nuances of operations, maintenance, all the things, right? So we've got a good panel lineup for you today to talk about that. Folks who have them, gotten them recently, had them for a while, different perspectives, both operationally and administrative. So it's going to be a fun conversation. So I'm excited for this one to finally get it done. So I want to welcome my panel. I've got a bunch of folks here from around the country. We've got Cary, North Carolina. We've got Roseville, Minnesota. We've got Denton, Texas, all in the house to help us talk about this. And I guess to get us going, because we have such a big panel, I'll just go around the horn and we'll everybody introduce yourself, tell us where you're from, what your position is in the department, because I think that's an interesting perspective on this topic. And what kind of rig you got? So let's go around. Shea, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having us on here. It's an honor. I've been in the Denton Fire Department for about 12 years now. Lieutenant here. I've been promoted about a year and a half. I got the opportunity for being up here at Station 1 where we got our Ventrca engine. Got to see all the infrastructure changes and the in-service and what that's like on putting one of those in service. So look forward to talking about it.
Awesome. Welcome to the show, sir. Kevin?
Kevin Ty here with Denton Fire. I'm the logistics captain, so kind of like a fleet liaison and order fire trucks and spec them out and stuff like that. I've got Mike here with me.
Yeah, I'm just jumped on here as the Apparatus community representative. I was kind of been from the start. I don't ride it. I ride a normal engine or again, but I jumped on the panel as the Apparatus committee perspective.
That's an important piece of this Apparatus committee for sure. Hey, Dan, tell us about you, man.
Hey, Dan O'Neill. Been with Roseville Fire about 15 years. I'm a senior firefighter for them. Just ready to take delivery of our brand new RTX that's coming.
Awesome. And Chief Parker?
Good morning, everybody. Chris Parker with Cary Fire Department, Assistant Fire Chief. One of the responsibilities I do is serve as the fleet manager for the fire department.
And what kind of rig do y'all have, Chief?
So we have a Pierce Volterra. We took delivery in June of 25, we took delivery in April of 25 and put it in service in June.
Awesome. Welcome to the show. And Chief Larson.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for having us. I'm Chief Ted Larson. I'm a battalion chief here for the C shift. Been on about 20 years, and we've had our RTX in and out of the station now for training, and we should take final delivery here in about maybe 2 or 3 weeks.
So you guys are right in the process of bringing this rig online, right? I saw it at TSI in December back in Dallas. It was down there. So I got a little peek at it there. Well, thank you all for coming on the show, man. It's good to have, like I said, have all these different perspectives from, kind of a firefighter level, company officer, apparatus committee, fleet management. There's so many things involved in a rig like this. I'm really excited to understand more about it. The only thing I know about electric vehicles right now is I drove a Tesla once when I was on vacations. That's all I got for you coming in. So you're going to have to educate me a little bit on how this works. But I'm curious to know from just the different perspectives, what caused you, what made you want to get an electric vehicle in the first place? Like, what from the different departments, what was the considerations where you said this is the direction we want to go? Whoever would like to chime in.
Well, it didn't. One of the leading things on the electric one was just the emissions. Whenever you're pulling in the bay and everything, it really does cut down on a lot of the emissions that are being put off in there when we're pulling in. Another thing is the lead time. For a typical combustion engine, you're looking at about 48 months. We got ours in 15.
15 months delivery. All right.
We
Roseville,
were initially told 12 months and ended up being 15, but still a lot quicker.
Fair point. Roseville, what do you think?
Yeah, I think we started really from our city leadership. They went to DHs early on, years ago, and talked about sustainability and vehicles that would have less of an impact on the environment. And it really started with the idea from them. And, we've had some pickup trucks in the city or some smaller vehicles that have been EV. But really, that's sort of what started this idea to even have an electric fire truck.
All right. And Cary, North Carolina, Chief, what got you all into that?
Yeah, I would say that our community has always been a very environmental conscious community. And so, when working with other departments, just really looking at sustainability goals as a whole and, what we can do as a department, one thing that we really focused on is reliability. And so as we kind of did, move towards the EV, really EV vehicles, any department in the town is, are they reliable? Can we depend on them? Obviously with our service, we don't have a lot of options to cancel going to the call or the truck being marked out of service. And so we felt really good that the product that was current that would meet our needs.
All right. I'm curious, what was your first impression when you looked at this thing? When a truck like this arrives, I guess we'll start with Roseville because the thing just rolled up recently. What's your first impression when you get one of these things?
I think for me, just the size of it, I think, took me back a little bit. It's a little smaller than our traditional trucks or diesel trucks. And the technology in it is completely different, right? Everything has technology in it, screens. So that's one of the things that really I took in as first off as seeing this truck.
Chief Larson, what did you think?
Yeah, one of the aspects to even be able to pull this off was to make sure people were on board. And it kind of starts with looks. Obviously we need it to function, and it cannot diminish our operations on scene, which these electric vehicles don't do currently. But really, it started with looks. And once we can win people over, and, it's got a little bit of a European look. But once we add a tailboard that's a little longer than they typically will spec, and once we add a front bumper that's fully usable and has storage and we can put a pre-connect in, it starts to look more like a North American rig. And then you throw on the very popular blacked out version package, and people start to get on board just by the way it looks.
How about North Carolina, Chief? When this thing rolls up, what's the vibe on it?
Yeah, I would say that just the general public and really our members, they didn't really see much of a difference. So one of our guiding principles was to keep the truck as close to and similar to our current spec, so that it operated and, it operated very similar to what we already have. When you look at pre-connects, when you look at where the ladders are mounted, the cab, all those configurations are identical to what that we already have with our spec, just minus a few things with the battery compartment.
Okay. And Texas, how did it feel down there in Denton?
One of the things that was the most surprising to me is that with the Pierce Volterra, it looked exactly like our other fire trucks, our other fire engines. So it wasn't any change. It was kind of a relief when you see, oh man, this is a brand new awesome fire engine. Of course, there's a battery pack right behind the cab. So as far as specking out the Apparatus committee, they had some stuff in around to make it fit.
Yeah, our typical engine is that we have a top mount pump with the Enforcer cab. So with the additional battery pack, we decided to do a side mount pump, keep the wheelbase as short as possible that we could. We didn't want to do the top mount pump and the battery pack. So we had to do some configuration changes on that, but it was a big hit for our guys that it looks like a normal fire truck. That was a big win for us to help convince the guys to keep open-minded with it. So, but that's really the only change on that Apparatus committee. We just had to kind of do some reconfigurations just so we're used to the top mount pump.
And there's no doghouse, right? I mean, there's no. I'm used to smacking something.
That's what we decided to do with that. It has a smaller Cummins engine in it, but we built the doghouse up to a normal traditional size, and we just have an additional storage space there. Is what we kind of did, because that's kind of where you rest your arm when you drive around, and all your map books and whatnot is right there. So we just added that to be about the same and made a drawer out of it.
Okay. So one of the things that struck me, where I'm from in Virginia, it's pretty hilly, right? And I've never, I understand these things squat. Is that right? Like the first thing I noticed when I saw one was, my first thought was, man, look at the clearance on that. Like I feel like I'd be dragging my nose or my tail trying to drive around here. Do these things like set up and down, or how does that work?
I'll speak on Denton's behalf. Like I said, it looks just like a normal Enforcer fire truck. We have the same clearance as our every other fire truck we have, so we have no issues with clearance, anything like that. It's just the batteries are above or even with the frame, so they don't hang out lower. Nothing's lower on the truck than our traditional fire trucks.
Okay. In Roseville, I was looking at yours at TS. That's where I noticed that. I was kind of standing out front that convention center, kind of looking underneath it to see what the clearance would be. And I think somebody mentioned, I think they set up and down. Is that how y'all's work?
Yep, fully adjustable. When you want it to basically get as low as it can, it's about 7 inches off the ground. And that is not what you would use to go driving down the road. So there's a road height, and I think it jumps up to 10 inches for on the road. And you can take it up higher. There's a forging, they call it forging level. And I want to say that is 18 inches off the ground. And that's if you were going through water or some type of flood situation.
So even more flexibility, I guess, than a traditional truck, right?
Quite a bit there.
With us.
Yeah.
We had one firehouse where you pulled out, it was kind of on a hill, and we would wear out the suspension sometimes just from making that constant left turn, of coming out of there. Chief, down in Cary, how does what does your truck do? Does it move up and down, or is it static?
No, it's static. And I would say that, going from our traditional spec to the Voltaire, we normally run a 10-inch frame rail, and we had to go up to a 13-inch frame rail. Just because of the battery weight. So a lot of people ask, well, how much extra weight? So it's really about 2,000 pounds extra than what our normal engine would weigh. And so the truck does sit just a few inches higher than our normal.
So that was one of my next questions. I was going to talk about weight was, aside from access, have you had any, I know where I'm from, we've got some bridges, out in our rural areas where we shouldn't cross with anything. Have you had any issues with the gross vehicle weight and getting around your city or your community? Anything to consider there, or is that just really not a thing?
No, speaking from Cary, it's a non-issue.
Yeah. How about anywhere else? Roseville, Texas, anybody?
No issue.
Nobody's having a problem with GVW?
No issue for us.
Awesome. It might be part of our community I used to work at. We were pretty rural in some spots, so we had to be mindful of the old drive fast thing doesn't work when you cross some bridges. So, all right, well, very good. Let's talk about the support of the vehicle, right? Like, let's start with the fire stations. When you back one of these electric rigs into a fire station, what has to happen to support that? Like, what modifications? What did you do? What had to be considered in advance to support an electric fire pump? Whoever would like to start.
I'll take this one first. I would say, really just looking at is there options to have power on site? What does the power look like? I think that you obviously got to engage your utility to make sure that you have power in the area. We selected a station that already had a transformer on site that had the required power. And so really just securing a charger. We elected to go with the overhead chargers. We did not want to mount anything in the bay that would get struck or hit or take any floor space. So we purchase a charger that is mounted overhead, and really just working through contract stuff through our procurement process and getting an electrical contractor and install. That's really it for us.
Okay. How about the rest of the gang? Roseville, what'd you have to do?
Yeah, we had to run 4-phase through the station. It's quite a bit of expense. Roseville also gives us a charger that plugs into that helps kind of communicate with the truck and charges it appropriately. But we had to run power in our station.
Texas, Denton?
We had to do an additional run over to the where we have a charger. We were kind of stuck in a contract phase to where we had to use Blink as our charger, which is just, it's a normal charger that you can charge any electric vehicle with. We had to have 480 volts to the station, which luckily we did. And then we had to fly a guy in to change a circuit breaker inside of our panel and everything. But it was kind of a pretty big deal getting the electricity ran over there for the charger and everything. But so I think that's kind of like when you're planning on putting an electric engine in, the time constraints on something like that is definitely something to consider.
As you said, getting facilities involved really early with this process was key. I think as far as prices are, what it cost $65,000 for the actual charger, but it took us $100,000 to get the proper, the proper lines run through the station. So the whole process was, fairly pricey, but we were able to share that. We're also very energy, environmentally conscious community here. So the environmental services department from our city was also willing to share some of that cost. That helped out a lot.
I was the budget chief when I retired. So now you got me. My calculator's buzzing over here. So we're looking at what, maybe a couple $100,000 in facility modifications. Does that seem like the kind of
160
per unit, right? How does that? And you may not know off the top of your head, but my first question is, how does that compare to my fuel budget? Like, how does that offset? And when does that expense pay for itself operationally, right? Like, so what has been your experience with that?
So when we started with the process of the Ventrca and possibility about doing it, Pierce sent out a form for us to fill out. Talk about like the how many calls the engine makes, and then our fuel, and then through their matrix and all this, they were able to get back to us like a savings that they expect us to have with going to the Ventrca. So it's kind of like a form we kind of filled out to kind of help justify the cost on all this stuff too. And so Pierce kind of led the way with that was one of the first steps we did, was kind of get that form filled out, where they were able to use their matrix and present it back to us about the savings. And I think in April, it'll be about a year, we would have the truck in service. And so that's when we're going to kind of go back on everything and see how much it really did save us or cost us at that matter. So
sounded like it might be 3 to 5 years before you break even, because obviously the initial cost is higher.
Yeah.
Chief Parker, what are you seeing down there in Cary?
Yeah, I'd say, really it's obviously it's new for everybody, EV fire trucks. And so really we're just kind of watching and seeing. We don't really want to say, hey, it's going to, we're going to get our return of investment at this time or this year, because we might have to replace the batteries, and what is the cost? And, something that I always, think about is like a flat screen TV, what the cost was 15 years ago compared to now. You're trying to repair them, they cost a lot of money, where now you just might throw it out and get a brand new one. And so we're just waiting and seeing what it looks like. I would say that really we've embraced the safety impacts or the employee health, and really that's the message that we've been sharing, just because we don't have enough information to say that this truck we're going to get a return on our investment at this year.
In Roseville, did y'all get any? I mean, you just now put it in service. So what's your expectation? Like, do you have any forecast?
Yeah, we have a projection to save about $15,000 a year on, diesel costs that would normally be there. As far as maintenance goes, I can't remember the last engine that didn't get a couple head gaskets. So, long-term maintenance, we fully expect to be able to recoup some funds there.
Okay. Yeah, less moving parts, I guess, right?
Well, also, if I may, our chief made it clear that this wasn't a financial, necessarily a decision to save money on fuel for us. This was more Denton, and we're very, very environmentally conscious city. That's a big priority for our citizens, and so that was the priority for us. And so, if we are able to recoup costs, or if we're able to break even at some point, then that's an added bonus for us. But it's not our original priority.
Okay, fair enough. I'm curious to know. Let's go to a fire. What's this thing like to, what's it like to work with? Like to actually go be operational with one of these? What are the pros? What are the cons? I guess we'll start with Denton because you guys have had it probably. I'm not sure who's had it the longest, Denton or Cary, but I want to definitely hear like what your experience is operationally.
So with our Ventrca, we have the electricity part of it, and we also have that backup diesel motor. So we can actually pump in both electric mode and diesel mode, and it can transfer over seamlessly from one to the other. And so we actually have tried that out there, and the guys on the end of the line, they can't tell a difference whenever we change over. One thing that's really nice when you're in pumping in electric mode is the quietness around the cab. You don't have that loud diesel motor that's idling up and everything like that. It's all it is just there's a hydraulic pump that's underneath there that you hear with the slack whine, and then the impeller's running. So I mean, it's really quiet. You can have a conversation kind of like what we're having right now, standing right next to the pump panel. Other than that, I mean, it pumps the same as any of our other fire engines do. So not much operational differences in that aspect.
Chief, what do you think? Chief Parker down there in Cary, how's it on a fire ground?
Yeah, very similar to Denton. I would say within about 2 weeks after we placed ours in service, we went to a 2-alarm fire. It was first due. It pumped on battery through a period of 3 hours. I mean, obviously, they're not pumping all 3 lines and for 3 hours continuously, as firefighters are shutting the lines off and on. And it was able to make it back to the station with battery. The truck is filled in at other stations for coverage throughout the day. It's always operated on battery. It's not reverted back to diesel. Just like Denton, it's it's almost an identical truck. Obviously, the spec is a little bit different, but it will transition to diesel going down the highway. It will transition to diesel if it senses a certain battery level on the fire, all within the NFPA pressure thresholds within 5 psi. So really, if you're inside the structure, you're going to see no difference. And when you look at it, it's got the battery, and then you have 2 options. Our manufacturer, you had 2 options for diesel tanks, and so it's got a 50-gallon diesel tank in addition to the battery, so it could pump for extended periods if needed.
Same thing, by the way, with if you transition from EV to diesel, you don't even notice it. As a driver, I did it on the highway 70 miles an hour, and I was kind of expecting a lurch or something. Nothing. All you see is all your gauges come on your RPMs and stuff. There you are. You're in diesel, so it's pretty seamless, pretty impressive.
And just something to add, when you talk about, EV vehicles and it's the acceleration, you have that instant power. And so, you don't have that turbo lag. Now, I will say if it's operating off of the diesel, which is a 6.7 Cummins motor, there is obviously a little bit of lag because it's a smaller motor and it's intended as a backup. But you have that instant power, instant acceleration if it's operating off of EV.
Fun. I'm kind of old, so I'm just sitting there. I'm appreciating. There was something, I don't know if the right word is soothing, but something comforting about hearing that engine rev up outside of a structure fire, right? You know what I'm saying? Like you're trying to force the door and you hear that. There was something nice about that. I guess that might be, but I think I would trade that for being able to hear myself talk to out there by the pumper, right? I mean, that sounds like that's a noticeable change to be able to actually hear something rather than hear
We've heard that from some of our long-serving engineers, people that have been on the pump panel for a long time. It's been a little bit of a change for them, for sure.
Not the older France days anymore. I guess it ain't, but I might be the only guy who actually knows what that sounded like. But anyway, it was loud. So, all right. So what drawbacks, like what are the things that on a working fire what surprised you? Like, you didn't see coming, either something that we want to think about in future design or something that was a benefit you didn't see coming? Like what are the surprises here?
I don't think we had any surprises. We really researched this pretty well and we talked a lot with Portland. They had one of Pierce's first ones out there, so we kind of knew what we were expecting and shared it with the guys. Shea, you can speak. I don't know if y'all had any surprises as far as on the fire ground with it.
No, we haven't really had any surprises on the fire ground.
I guess the surprise is no surprise.
Yeah.
Huh. And same thing, Cary, Chief. Everything's.
Yeah, I mean, we've had, you know, a few issues just as we would with any truck, really, you know, as you work stuff out. Doesn't matter if there's, you know, what motor's in there. I would say, you know, really surprised. We run a flat top engine company. And so for this truck, we actually went to a 60-inch cab from our traditional 70 to reduce the wheelbase because the battery box is about 19 inches. And so we were thinking more performance over comfort. And so the truck is a little tight in the rear of the cab of our truck when you look at the you know, the overhead height and then the air condition.
Okay. And Roseville, just curious, how's it been training? You guys are right in the training process now, right?
Yeah, I took we go through a 2-day course for training, and I think the biggest, you know, I don't know if what you guys have, but we have bumper lines, right? And that's what we created on our RTX. But we also have a turret mount right on the front, it's kind of like a mini ARF truck, right? But we also are new to our training is actually everything's going to be pulled off. Well, the hose beds are actually off the rear. So we're going to change up fire ground operations a little bit to use the Minuteman pulling off the rear. It's going to just change our fire ground operations just a tiny bit. But as far as training on it, it was great. Even especially that working height that you can get down to about, I think Chief said about 7 inches. Healthier for firefighters. We're not jumping out of the cab, ruining our knees, you know. But training went well. And piggyback off of all these other guys saying the noise, you can have a full on conversation when that thing is running and seamless transition to that diesel backup if you need to.
Amazing.
And there were some surprises based on from my position as like a fleet liaison. Do you want to talk about that now, or?
We could talk. Certainly, how does it fit in the fleet? Like, I'm curious. I guess let's set the stage first. Who manages your fleet for the 3 fire departments that are here? Like, does the fire department manage fleet, or is it off to a centralized fleet service?
We have fleet EVTs, 3 of them, and then I am the fleet liaison for those 3.
So you handle all your fleet internally at Denton?
Well, they all work for fleet. The EVTs do, but then I try to work with them to make sure everything gets done.
I got you. And Cary, Chief, how do are y'all centralized or?
Yeah, so fleet falls under Public Works, and so we actually have a separate shop. Even though they work for Public Works, they're specialized. We have 3 mechanics that specialize on fire trucks, separate of the rest of the town, but they technically work for Public Works.
In Roseville, how do y'all handle it?
Yeah, we keep it in the fire department. We have a couple city mechanics, but we're fortunate enough to where we're only about 30 minutes away from a Rosenbauer manufacturing facility. So anything major goes right to the plant.
All right. So what did you have to do with your EBTs? Like, do they have to go off somewhere? Or how does this impact those? Like where I'm from, we had a centralized fleet services that we had dedicated fire mechanics there. You know, the EBTs were in fleet service, but we were smart enough back in the day to send them even they were part of the apparatus planning committee, you know, like they were always part of the design of the truck. What training is involved for them? Like, we know we've got to set aside some funding for updating facilities. What's involved in fleet? Do I need to, what kind of investments do you have to make for training for your EVTs? Any equipment they need to keep on hand, that type of thing. What's that like?
Yeah, so I would say, obviously we're supported by a dealer of the manufacturer that does offer mechanical services. We try to, we have them, but we try to be self-sufficient. And so when we were in this process, we wanted to ensure that our mechanics had the same type of training that the dealer's mechanics did. So what we did is we offered a class in-house with our 3 mechanics, and then other dealers and other Pierce mechanics came to our town, and they offered a 2-week class to ensure that our mechanics could be certified and knew what to do.
Okay. Anybody else? Denton?
Same here. The Pierce was great with bringing their people down here to train a 2-week class for our EVTs. Yeah, so they spend 2 weeks in that, and then if we need any support, Sims Martin, who's our dealer, they're actually in our city here, about 10 miles down the road, and less. They're very helpful whenever we have any issues.
All right. And Roseville, how'd y'all set that up?
Yeah, we really haven't. We have great support with Rosenbauer, and them being so close, they'll just send a technician down, or we'll head up to them.
That makes it easy, man. When you've got that factory right there, boy, that makes a lot of difference. Yeah. So let's go from fleet management down to station checks. Like, walk me through what has changed in the morning. Like you coming in, you put your gear on the rig, whip out your checklist, and start working around a truck. What's different? Like, has anything changed new for you, for some of the ops guys? What's that like?
So the morning checks is it's really similar to the way it was before. The one thing I can say that's changed on the diesel side, we would always try to make sure that the fuel stayed above 3/4 tank. But with having that charger here in house, and it charges pretty fast, we have a supercharger, and so we get about 1% a minute with our charger. So we will let that battery get down to about 50% until we charge it up, and it'll charge up to 100% in less than an hour. So other than that, the checks in the morning is the same. They start it up, run their pumps and everything like that, and that all stayed the same.
How about the rest of the crew? Anything different?
There's a few extra coolant reservoirs. The batteries maintain a system where it's temperature controlled, and so there is a few extra checks that we wouldn't normally see with a normal truck.
But you're talking what? A couple minutes?
Less than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one thing I think I'm picking up, I didn't ask. So it sounds like my impression is Denton and maybe some of you guys have a diesel backup, right? And then at Roseville, is yours straight up electric, no diesel?
So it's fully electric. There is a diesel generator driven by a V6 BMW diesel motor that will only charge batteries, will only run the pump through the electric system. So it really is a fully electric vehicle with that diesel backup.
Okay, so that's what I was curious about, because my next question was, it doesn't happen often, but every now and then you'll get on a fire ground where you're there for a day or two, right? I think maybe it happened twice in my career, where we operated for multiple days and we were literally fueling trucks on site. I guess if you've got a diesel backup, that's not really a point, right? I mean, is that anything that you had to consider? It sounds like it, maybe not.
For Roseville, it's not. We, it's like any truck. Eventually, you're going to run out of fuel, and you'll have to bring a fuel truck out to support your vehicles. I would say this one probably is going to run out of fuel maybe 2 hours faster than a traditional diesel, but other than that, it'll keep running for a good six plus hours.
How about the rest of the departments? Nope.
Yeah, ours is a dual powertrain, can operate separate of each other. So if we're on a call for extended time, we would run the battery down. It would automatically switch over to diesel backup, and then we would fill it like any traditional way as far as request a fuel truck.
And be clear, sometimes I think people hear that ours has a diesel engine as well, and they think, oh, it's some kind of hybrid. It's a full EV vehicle with a hybrid with a diesel backup. So it is still full EV. You can just switch through it.
So what do you, I think that's probably, the reason I'm asking, that's probably one of the first criticisms I hear, when people talk about these electric fire vehicles is, well, we don't have to worry about running out of battery. And B, what if we get on one of these, multi-day incidents? How are we going to handle that? But I mean, what would each of y'all say to those people that when they throw that "but what if" card?
I would say the engineering supports this style of EV. Where a good example is the Ford Lightning that just got recently discontinued, and what they're going to go to is the same thing the fire trucks do, where they put a gas generator in the vehicle to support the electric batteries and the whole EV side of the vehicle. And that way you can get the range you're after, the longevity on scene you're after. But I think the way they've engineered it seems to be a legitimate way to move forward.
Chief Parker?
Yeah, I would say, we elected to go with the smallest fuel tank option, 50 gallons. So you got two options, 65 or 50. We went with the 50. All our other trucks run a 65. So I would say that you have 50 gallons of diesel plus a battery. So no issues for us as far as extended times. I can't speak to the burn ratio of the diesel and all that, but in theory, it could last longer than a traditional one, I would say. It'd be interesting to run a test on it and see.
How about the ops guys? What do you say to across the kitchen table when they go, well, we don't want to be worried about running out of battery?
I mean, to me, it's a non-issue. I mean, we have the backup diesel motor that it doesn't charge the battery, but it just transitioned from electric to diesel. So, as long as we have diesel in the tank and you checked your diesel motor off, then there shouldn't be any issue with, operability of it.
So what's it like to drive?
It's quicker off the line. It doesn't, like he was, I think it was Chief Parker that was saying that earlier, that you don't have that turbo lag. So once you get that initial takeoff, to me, everything else is pretty close to the same with, like the speed, and when you're driving, the acceleration of it seems pretty similar. It's really quiet inside the cab. It's almost so quiet your voice echoes inside the cab. So you almost don't even have to wear the headsets whenever you're driving just regular, because it's just so quiet. You have to be cautious of your surroundings when you're driving around town with the windows down.
There's a story there that we probably won't get into. Well, do you need, so we were wearing the headsets for noise and siren, but how are the cabs? If you've got unless you want to roll the windows down in the summer, how does this impact headsets downrange?
I think it's still, are you asking if we'll still need them down the line? I think it's still important, because whenever you are running calls and you're blasting the queue and the air horn and everything like that, it's still noisy in there. And I still think that it's necessary for communications to be able to talk to people. And we have the wireless headset, so you have to hit a button to be able to communicate with the dispatch and everything. And so instead of having to pick up a mic and bring it up, I don't know. We wear them all the time anyways, just in case if we catch a run while we're out, nobody has to worry about trying to grab it or anything. But
wireless headsets, that didn't exist when I was working. That must be nice. I wish I had a nickel for every time I about tore my head off getting out the rig. They were just becoming a thing when I was doing that. So what technical question have I not asked you yet that you think people should know? Because I'm going to change gears here as we wrap things up. So go ahead, Kevin.
There are some challenges, going back to the fleet side of things. This is new, right? This is new. There's some challenges with anything that's new. So we're implementing kind of new technology. Our EVTs can't do quite as much on these, right? So I don't know about y'all's guys, but we can bring them anything and they're going to fix it, right? Anything, and they'll fix it. Well, against these electrical vehicles, this is newer. They have to have specialized equipment. So I was talking to our guys this morning, and they were saying they had, I think, $15,000 worth of specialized gear. They could do a little bit more, right? And so there's some different things there. And then, of course, that would have to come with specialized training as well. But for us, we have Sids Martin has a shop, like I said, down the road from us. So we just go to Sids Martin's and they take care of us. There have been other issues. Right now, I think there's 12 of these Volterras running. There are 12 of these Volterras running. And so we're working closely with Sids and Pierce to get some of these issues lined out, get some error codes. One thing that's been a challenge is it's supposed to go straight into diesel if there's any trouble, with the EVT. I'm sorry, with the EV, if there's any electrical motor problem, you go, okay, no problem. We've got a internal combustion engine we switch right over to. That hasn't always worked. So a couple of times we've had an issue with the electrical side of it, and it'll just shut down, kind of a self-protection mode, right? My understanding. And so we've been down in the water once or twice now, working with Enos to get this taken care of, and they're very responsive. Pierce has great customer service, and they're on it. So we're like I said, we're still in our first 12 months, and we're working with those teams. That's been a challenge, but Pierce has been great. So
I wouldn't hold that against any rig, right? Anytime you put in a new rig, it's going to spend a little time in the shop. That's just part of the thing. It takes about a year to get it ironed out, seems like sometimes. All right. I do have one more question about that, though. Apparatus replacement plan, right? So what have you done, given having these rigs now for a little bit of time? Have you yet modified your apparatus replacement plan, or do you anticipate doing that, or are you just kind of waiting and seeing? I'd be curious to see. Chief Parker, what's your strategy there?
Yeah, I think, we operate a 9-station department, just shy of 200,000 people. So we do move apparatus around from busier to slower stations to get the longevity of the apparatus. And so this obviously is going to be different for us. This truck can't go anywhere else. So I think, looking at the big picture from a high level, new stations, maybe just putting in some conduit, ensuring that there's, the utility company can support the power and kind of hit it from that angle. As far as capital budget, we can work with the town and really just, get a new one on order or go back or really just play it by ear as we learn.
How about Roseville? Have you modified? I mean, you're just getting going. So have you had a look at your plan down range?
Yeah, we project to be able to stretch it out an extra 3 years so we'll go from 7 on a replacement plan to 10.
Man, that's nice. 7-year replacement plan. Whew, that's beautiful. And Denton, what's y'all's strategy there?
I think we're still waiting to see how this one works out. Like I said, we're enjoying it right now. We're working out the kinks, but no changes to our plans yet. Like Chief Parker said, there's the issue of you can't, if this goes into reserve status, it can't just fill in at any other station, right? Because we're not in charge with those other stations. So I think moving forward, we're considering having, heavier power lines dropped into it. They're on mobile chargers. You can get some, they're about maybe the size of about 2 foot by 2 foot, maybe 3 or 4 feet tall on wheels. And so we have the option of possibly purchasing one of those. And say if it ever goes to another station, or if the station goes out of service for whatever reason, we may be able to move to another station, plug it in, and it still operates normal. But as far as replacement schedule, we haven't changed yet.
That does seem, that's certainly something to consider. So on the list, the things I've kind of got in the back of my mind to think about, I've got the apparatus cost, I've got the apparatus delivery time. Seems like the EVs are winning in that category because the turnaround time's a lot quicker. I do need to modify some facilities. I do need to have some training considerations for my techs and those types of things. And the apparatus replacement plan is hard enough as it is. So this is going to be something to think about. That was a big struggle for us. I don't know what they're doing these days. Hopefully it's better. But, we were struggling to try to get it to 15, right? Back then. So that's why I was jealous, Chief Larson, that, man, you coming in there with that tight of a replacement plan, that's beautiful. That's a good thing. I used to kind of tease I was going to put antique plates on the trucks if we got past 20. So, that was that. But so let's kind of change gears as we wrap up. Cultural change, like, what was it like? What did your firefighters give you any pushback with this thing? Did they, was the station getting the electric vehicle? Were they like, oh, those poor guys, they get some good nicknames out of this, or how did it go? Like, was there a cultural pushback or anything?
I would say, yeah, here in Denton, there was a lot. I say a lot. There was a little bit. We're all firemen. We all hate change. We hate we hate things the way they are. So anytime you bring something new in that's different, they're gonna push back a little bit. I think once they all started kind of getting on it and riding it and realizing how nice it was, they're kind of being a little bit more open-minded about it.
I'd say we had a little bit. I think I expected it to be more difficult than it was to transition into this and more culture change. But like I said, it looks like a normal fire truck for the most part. You get in, you turn it on, and you take off, and you're able to go to call just like a normal fire truck, right? So honestly, it's been minimal.
Yeah, I think, really we didn't push anybody. I think when you look at it, our organization overall, we're very innovative, and that's a testament to the people that work for this organization. We're always going to try new things and that nature. And really, I tell people, it really started at the when we went to go do pre-con on this truck, and when we were going to do finals and stuff, we took some heavy credibility, people that have a lot of credit, some of our driver operator instructors, and we let them talk to the engineers. We let them ride in a truck up in Appleton. And so as people not necessarily want to hear what I have to say, but that captain that's been there for a long period of time, that's on the front line, they want to hear what he has to say. And so we really first started with that and just kind of let it, the work its way around the organization. And then when we got the truck, we ensured that 100% of the people that would operate the truck went through a training program, and really just took our time and let people ask questions and work through, to see that it's very similar to what we operate. Like I said earlier, we wanted it to be identical to what we already run, minus the EV part of the truck. So really just taking our time and letting people, meet people where they're at and let them ask questions and be patient with them.
Chief Larson?
Yeah, the RTX for us is a vastly different rig than we've had in the past. What I have noticed in training so far is it's won over the folks that maybe approached it with some level of skepticism by its abilities. It's got a pretty intuitive system once you learn it. But if you stand back and look at it, it can be a little daunting because it is so different. But you'll quickly see once you dive into it that it's pretty intuitive.
Dan, what do you think, man? You out the street?
That's basically exactly what I was gonna say. Just like Shea, I think there's a little bit of pushback. No one likes new stuff, but like Chief said, it's very intuitive. Once you get really into it, it's very user friendly. And then with at least our, first initial training and train the trainer, I think everybody that went through it actually enjoy it and actually like operating it.
Awesome. Does everybody have a traditional pump panel, four levels, levers or whatever? How does the pump panel work on this thing? Is it any different?
The RTX pump panel is vastly different. It's just buttons. It's buttons and a couple of screens.
What kind of pump panel do you have on there?
On the RTX?
Yeah. It's not a mechanical pump.
No, system. It's a very small electric, almost like a computer in a sense. And it's located in our L4 compartment, but you could probably put it anywhere, I imagine. Yeah, it's vastly different.
Is that the same that didn't? How is it? What's on the Denton rig?
The only thing that's different is it's the side mount, like what Ventrca was talking about, other than a top mount. Other than that, it's all the mechanical pull levers and everything like that.
And Chief Parker, what's your pump panel?
It's no different than what we already operate.
Mechanical?
identical. The pre-connects are in the same locations. The colors are the same. Everything is identical.
That's where my last little bit that I wanted to bring up was the pump automation. Is there automation in this thing, Chief Larson? Like, can you run it from an iPad type of thing, or do you have to go push a button on the?
No, you can run it from different locations. So you can be inside the cab if you were the driver, and you could be pumping and rolling. But there's a screen in there where they can operate and do the vast majority of engineering type work instead of being at that L4 compartment.
Okay, so on this show, we've had, I guess maybe twice, we've had discussions about pump automation as well. And I kind of see these, they're not the same thing technology-wise, but they're the same concepts, I think, as far as change management goes, right? Like, so that was the first thing I saw in the technology space was they were starting to automate the pumps. I'm used to pulling on a lever, So I was a little skeptical about that. Engaged with some of these folks that make these things. And the thing that they said that changed my mind was they asked me how, we were at a conference, they asked me how I got there. I said, I flew. They said, what was the bumpiest part of the trip? I said, takeoff and landing. They said, right, when the pilot's actually flying the plane, right? Like, yeah, I was on autopilot for the smooth part. And I was like, so I'll get on a plane and trust that technology to carry my tail 40,000 feet in the air, but yet I'm just old school that I want to climb up under a truck and hit it with a mallet, right? It's the technology exists today that we should be taking advantage of. The pump automation, what we talked about in those other shows was how it might help you with staffing. If you're short staffed on a rig, you're running with 3 people, you're already kind of behind the 8 ball. So why not leverage technology? The technology's become reliable enough now. I think we could do some things. If we could reduce risk to firefighters from the carcinogen exposure, from the noise exposure. I mean, there sounds like there's a lot to this, right? Like it's. I never understood one of the things that puzzles me about firefighters is when I compare it to the military, they tend to leverage technology to the fullest extent to be as effective as possible. And we, while we operate in a similar concept in the fire service, it's a tactical operation. But for whatever reason, we tend to want to not use the technology to make our life easier. And it still puzzles me. Like we're still playing with markers and stuff in the back of the command vehicles. How come we're not on glass now? There's lots of places where we could really start to improve these things. So as we get ready to wrap up, any closing thoughts? If you wanted to, I'm sure this episode will get a lot of kitchen table talk around the fire stations around the world. Any last things you want to kind of share with folks if they're considering an electric vehicle? What's your advice to them? Where do you guide them? What do you think? And I'll start with Kevin. You go first, and we'll kind of go around the horn.
I think get your facilities involved early, get your EBTs involved earlier. I think somebody said it before, but get your EBTs on those pre-con trips. Get them early in the process. Yeah, by and large with Pierce, it's been a very similar experience to our other fire engines. It hasn't been a great difference. Our pump panels are the same. It drives the same. Yes, there's been some learning curves, but by and large, it's been a very seamless transition. We really enjoyed it.
Awesome. Thank you. Shea, Lieutenant, anybody, y'all got anything to add there?
I guess the only thing that I would add is just when you're in the process of doing it, like what Kevin said, get facilities in there early. Make sure your infrastructure can handle the extra electricity requirements that it's going to take, like generators too, like our backup generators. Sometimes a backup generator won't handle the charger you're going to get. So that may be another upgrade that you don't really foresee in the future, and just knowing what all costs are going to be before you kind of get into it. So that would be a big one.
That's a good point. Good point.
I would prefer you just anybody can come to Denton if you're local. You can see ours and or talk to Shea. Call the guys at the station. They'll be more than happy to talk to anybody about it as well. So
great advice. Go look at one in person for sure. Chief Parker, what's your advice for folks?
Yeah, I think it kind of stole my line. I would say, there's a lot of people that you can just pick up the phone and call. If you got questions, the people at the stations are going to shoot you straight. And, obviously there is issues. There's issues with any truck that you have, especially for that first year. So I would say, pick up the phone, call, send an email, ask questions, come visit us in Cary. We'll be happy to walk you through the process and what we learned learned as it becomes more EVs become more in the fire service.
All right. Good advice. Dan, what do you think?
I think if your jurisdiction is going more green and also, firefighter safety, that's what we're all saying, firefighter health. So I think our new RTX is really going to help with that. Low emissions, no emissions, get that low, help out with ergonomics of those firefighters getting in and out of the rigs. So if you're really looking at that firefighter health and that green initiative, RTX is the way to go. So.
All right. And Chief Larson?
Yeah, the RTX seems to be a pretty challenging rig in the aspect of change into the fleet. It doesn't mirror any of our previous engines. But once we're past that learning curve, I fully expect our folks to embrace it. And, it reminded me of the automation you were talking about. On the RTX, there is one aspect to the automation where, they call it a turret, but we typically call them deck guns. They have a deck gun where you could run with a joystick from the inside of the cab. And you can set up an automation so you can basically hit the play button. You cycle it a couple times in the direction or pattern that you want your deck gun to go. And then it'll continue to do that as long as you want. So there is a little bit of automation, and the overall innovation in that rig is pretty substantial. And we're looking forward to having it in our fleet. And we understand it's going to take some significant time and effort for our folks on training ahead of time, this thing going into service, but we're excited about it.
That's amazing. I really do appreciate everybody. I have learned a ton. Lots of stuff I didn't know about them. Like I said, I drove a Tesla once. That's about all I got. So it's interesting to hear the different aspects of, from facilities to fleet to training to all the different nuances of it. I'm a lot less skeptical than I was, like hearing how it's working and hearing how it's going. So I appreciate everybody taking the time to offer some information on this. I would encourage you guys to, at FDIC next year, when it comes around, maybe submit some classes on this kind of thing. This would be great content, for us to learn more about. I know the fire service certainly is looking at it. We have a lot of questions, and you guys are the ones that are going to have the experience. So I appreciate you taking the time to share that. That really, really helps everybody a lot. And you heard what the gang said here on the panel. If you're looking at an electric vehicle like that, certainly reach out, do your homework, go find those who have that experience, and they'll save you a lot of headache downrange. You don't have to make the same mistakes twice. So I really, like I said, gang, I really appreciate all that information. So that is a wrap with the Fire Service Data and Tech Talk podcast this month. We'll be back next month with another topic. Always looking for ideas. If you have anything that you'd like to see on the show or feedback, please reach out. You can find me. I've got a page on Facebook, Fire Service Data and Tech Talk podcast. I've also got, I guess it's called X now, a handle on X called Data Tech Talk. And you can always just shoot me a message on LinkedIn. Happy to hear what you want to have on the show. We can answer the questions that you have. So thanks for listening.